Hey friends, in this video, I would like to talk about how we can convert a list into a sublist. So the list is one of the most used collection in Java language. Sometimes this list can be a large and uh, creating a sublist and operating over them seems very logical step. So think about you have like a list of like large IDs, right? And then you want to query database. Then you would like to create a sub list of the IDs and then send those sublists instead of sending all the list of IDs to the database to avoid the data size. So, so this is what we're gonna do in this tutorial. So we're gonna split the large list into the sublist, and we're gonna see different options to do that. By default, Java doesn't provide any helper to create the sublist from large list, but we will see that how we can implement one using the core Java, and also we'll see what are the different third-party libraries are available for us to create the sublist. So that's the plan for this tutorial. So without wasting time, let's get started. Let's first create a class called list to sublist. I'll make this camel case. Okay. Let's create our main method and call this option as option one. So first, what we'll do is that we'll create like one sublist method using the plain Java without using any third-party library. So how we're gonna do that is like first we need to create the list of numbers, like large list. And in order to create that sample data, the very first thing that we can do is we can use the int stream. So if you're not aware of the int stream API, it's provided by Java Streams API, and you can basically create the not input but int stream API. So this can allow us to create. So we can define the start and we can define the end number, something like, let's say we create like 111,000 or something like that, some large number. And then since this is the int stream, so we have to box it so that we get the the object type instead of the primitive. And finally we can convert that to a list. So this would basically give us the list of integers. We can call it numbers. All right, so we have the sample data ready. So how are we going to use this data? So first of all, let's create the result. This is where we're going to store our list of list, because we want to create the sublist, right? So sublist would be the list of list. Well, something, imagine like we have this big array, and then we have like a small number of arrays inside it. So this is what we're going to do. So this is going to be our result, and or better to call it like sublists, and that's going to be our new array list. Next thing we're going to do is that we would like to the strategy we'll use is that we'll have like a batch size. So for example, we can define like how much the batch size should be for the list, right? So if like we have like 100k numbers, then we would like to like have 1,000 numbers in a one list. So we'll have like a set like list of 1,000 integers and then multiple of them. So let's define them as a batch size as 1,000. And what we're gonna do is that we're gonna read the 1,000 records. We're gonna add to the sublist, and then we go move to the next one, add a next one, and next one, and next one. So we just read like those 1,000 records, and then we add it to the sublist. So that's the plan. The best thing to do about that is to create a while loop, and we would like to run the while loop while we reach to the size of the numbers. And we want to go do is that we'll have like some the window, right? How do you define the window? So first we have to have a start point and the batch size, right? Like how much data you want to read. So you have like this cursor that is like moving, and then you have this batch size that you are reading. So what we can do is like we'll have like a start over here. We do the batch size, and we make sure that the value is less than number dot size, and the sum is less than that. While doing so, we'll keep like reading that number, that many elements, and then keep moving our cursor forward. So in order to keep moving our cursor, so let's say we have read the interval here, then we have to reset the start to the end, right? And end would be something like start plus batch size. So that would be the end of that interval, right? So we'll just set the start to end at the end of the loop. And now the work that we need to do is that we have to read the numbers, right? So we can say numbers, and we can say sublist, and put the start and end. So this would like read that interval, and we can add the that interval to the sublists that we have. We just say that. So we have read one interval, we added that to the sublist. We reset the start, and once the we change our start point once we read the one interval, and we keep doing that until we reach to the end of the so the breakpoint is that when we reach to the situation where we pass the size of the numbers, right? So let's say you have like for example, you have the final number is 1000 and your batch is like 990 or something, and then you add 1000 to, or you add like let's say 20 to it, right? So that makes it how much? Like it will make it will pass the 1000, right? So that will be breakpoint. The problem with this approach is that the last remaining element, so let's say 20, it's a 20, we won't be able to add that into the interval. So in order to also add those numbers, what we can do is that we can add that to our so we have these numbers. What we can do is we can add the start. So start would be like it will be keep moving, right? So it will be like whichever point we had that break point in the loop. So from there we read to the end of the numbers. So that remaining element will be captured in this, and we add that to the result sublist that we have. So we can easily add that at the end. Okay, so that's the solution we have. And what we're gonna do is that would like to print them so that we can see that it indeed prints the element that we want. So let's do this for each system dot out dot print line, and this would print the. So let's call the option number 1, and we need to make this static since this is the static method. Okay, so that's the solution. Let's revisit again. So we have this input which kind of generates the list of number and this large list, and we need to convert that to a sublist. So what we're going to do is that we will create the sublist over here, and we'll define the batch size. Like this would be the size of that sublist, each individual sublist in the list of list, and we'll define the starting point. We'll create one interval, and we'll keep moving the starting point of it so that we read that block of that interval size numbers, and we keep doing this until that we overpass the numbers. And once we do that, we have all the remaining element that we did not added because of the overpassing this interval. We just add them remaining element to the another list, and then we print them. So if I run this method, I should get the list of list or that the sublist that we want to have. So let's wait for the output. All right, so as you can see that the list is getting created, and in the first interval we should have like 1,000 elements or something like that. Basically the batch size that we defined. So let's see, yeah, the first one is 1,000 element, the second one is 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and all that. So yes, indeed we are getting our sublist created over here. So that works. So basically this option is working correctly. There is one optimization that we can do on this option number 1, so that we don't have to do this extra 2 lines, which is that we could basically remove this 2 lines, and instead of what we can do is that we can, sorry, not 2 lines, just 1 line. And instead of that, what we can do is we can, when we pick the interval, instead of saying end, we can say that math.min, and can say either go for the numbers dot size or go for the start plus batch size. So how it works is that, so for the last element, either of it can be minimum, right? So we can overpass the batch size, and or we can have the, so if start plus batch size might be able to overpass, right? Like for example, for the last interval, this may overpass the number of size. So in that case, we just read up to the minimum. We read up to only the number of size. But for the other cases, when we have the start plus batch size has not overpassed the number of elements, that would be the minimum, right? So we take that that value for the remaining cases. One modification we have to do is for the while loop as well. We don't now have to like check for the intervals, but we just only have to check for the start is less than the number of size, and I think that should be and start is going to be only for the number of size. We don't have to read the intervals. So for the reason for that is now that we are doing the math.minimum with number of size and the start plus batch, we will not be picking the all number over here, and we also have to modify this. We can also get rid of this end since we are not defining the end as such here for the list, and we can just say that the start would be start plus batch size. So we'll keep shifting the start to the batch size. So our cursor will be moving from the starting position to the end or to the batch size position, and that's how the while loop is getting updated. And for the last element, when the number, when it's like almost either it is just before overpassing it, this start plus batch size will be overpassing the number of size, because of the batch size is added to the start, and it basically crossing the numbers size. So in that case, number size would be the minimum, and then we just read up to that point and add that to the list. So this modification we can do. It's not a big modification, to be honest, but just wanted to share with you that this modification also we can do with the code. And if we run this, we'll get the output. So let's quickly check it. So let's confirm the first batch. In the end of the first batch, it's 1000, and for the other batches, we can see that it's ending at 2000, 3000, 4000. So yeah, it's indeed picking like 1000 records in each list, and the type is list of list. So yeah, it does work. All right, so now we have now that we have covered the option number 1, where we have we wrote the logic to get the sublist from the list. Now let's see what is option number 2, and what changes we have to, or what logic we have to write in order to get the sublist from the list. So okay, so we're going to use the streams API and right click function style code here in order to read the list of numbers, group them together since until we read the batch size, and then return that as a value. So first of all, let's get our input numbers here. Now what we can do is that we can stream these numbers and convert them from the list to a stream. And we can collect them using a group by clause. So what it's gonna do is that, so collector basically allow us to use, so if you if you're familiar with the streams API, you in collector you can basically define your logic how we want to collect the streams of the elements, right? So we can write the conditions like grouping by, so whatever stream of elements we have, we can define logic over here that how we want to group these elements and create sub buckets and something like that. So here we define basically like the key. So we have each element here. So let's call them as element E, and we'll need like some value over here. Let's call it val, and divide by batch size. So why we divide by batch size? So first of all, let's define the batch size as bitted. and I'll explain why we need to do this. So first of all, why we need to define the batch size and what is this val. So this val will be some value. Let's call this as a val. For example, this will be like some value that will be like that will be divided by the batch size. So let's say consider that the value of val is like 1. It can be like it will be some kind of a counter or something that basically keep increasing. So let's say the val is like 1 and batch size is 1000. So when you divide 1 by 1000 you get 0, and you keep increasing it, right? So let's say your val gets to the like 1000, and when you divide 1000 by 1000 you get 1. So this result of this will be changed from 0 to 1. So it will be 0 until you have like a value lesser than batch size. So that will become key, right? So all the values that is getting passed to this grouping by until the batch size, all of them have like a division 0. That means that is going to be a key to group all of them, right? So all of these value until like 1000 will be bucketed into the 1 group, and then from 1 you'll have like 1001, 1002. Those all will have like a 1 as a division, and then they will be bucketed into like a key having the division value 1. Similarly, we'll have like a 2 and 3 and so on. So it will be grouped by the division value, right? That's the idea over here. And this val would be some sort of incrementer. When you use streams, there's a class called atomic integer that you can use. For counter. So make integer. This you can use as a counter. Let me okay, it's already imported. So there's a method on this. It's called get the value and increment. Oops, not required. Counter get and increment. So this will basically get the value of this counter at the moment and increment to the 1, so that the next one can get the next one can be getting the incremented value. Now that we have like all these buckets, simply we can see that give me the values, which is like a group of element, right? And we can also see that the grouping by basically returns the map. The key is basically the division value, and then the list is basically all the value that got grouped in that. Once we do this, we have the result over here. This is basically list of list. And okay, that's fine. So it's returning the collection type, which is still fine. We have a collection of list of. So this would be our sublist, and we could easily print them just to see the output. And let's call this here in the main method and comment out the first one. So let's see the output real quick. Okay, so the output got printed. Let's see the end values. The first one has 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000. Okay, yeah, so it's getting each element in the sublist. And okay, so we have the option number 2 ready over here. So now that we have seen the option number 1, option number 2, let's implement the option number 3. So in this option, we'll use the third-party libraries that provides like helper method to create the sublist from the list. So what we're gonna do is like the first library that we're gonna use is Apache Commons collection API. So for that, I need to add the dependencies in the pom.xml. So let me do that. Okay, so let's define the dependencies and add the Apache Commons here and import them here by reloading it. Now the method that provided by Apache Commons is called listUtils partitions. So listUtils is the utility class that we can use. Looks like it hasn't downloaded from the mail, downloaded from the Maven Central. So let's give some time. Looks like it has been added already. So in the dependencies, so let's see. Okay, so now that I can see there's a listUtils, and we can call the partition method on this. It's a class method, so we can say numbers and batch size. These two values we have to define. So the numbers would be our input that we created before, which can be like this. And the second thing is, really the second thing that we need to do is from here is that get the batch size, and batch size would be, let's say 1000 if it's consistent with the other options, and this 1000 batch size, and then I think these two are enough to get the sublist from the list. And let's call this sublist and let's print it. So sublist for each sum.out.println, and that's it. So let's see if this one prints the output that we are expecting. All right, so the sublist has been printed. We can see the last value of the each list to confirm that the, okay, so 2000, 3000 and 10,000 I can see, and 1000. So looks like the list has been, sublist has been printed correctly. So let's move forward with the another third-party API. So the another API that we will use is called Guava library. So Guava library is basically created and managed by Google, and it's open source, so we can use that for our example as well. Very popular library. So let's first download the dependencies for the Guava. I'm gonna copy paste the XML for the dependency. So, and I'll just reload the Maven, download that dependency real quick. So the method that provided by Guava is a little bit similar to what we have seen in the collection API from Apache Commons. So it basically has like a lists dot partition and not the listUtils. And the specification is same. You provide the numbers and you provide the patch size, and that gets your work done. You can just basically get the sublist like we did above and print that. So let's call this sublist 1 and print that. I'll just comment out so that we don't have too many output here. Okay, so let's print this and see that this one also prints the sublist correctly. Okay, so the sublist has been printed to the console, and I'm gonna just verify the last value of the list so that we can confirm the size. 1000 for the first one, and the second one is 2000, 3000, 5000. Yeah, looks fine to me. Okay, so that's the option number 3. So basically, what we have done in this tutorial is that we have created the sublist from the large list. This is very useful for the cases where you have to read the input or read the elements in chunks and use them for some things. For example, querying the DB, you want to pass on some IDs. You basically you cannot send like 1 million IDs or something to the database to read. So you would probably create a chunk of the record and then send them to the database. So this kind of operation requires us to create like sublist of the from the list. So yeah, these are the 3 options that make sense to create sublist. That's it for this one. And if you like this tutorial, consider subscribing to the channel. You